Hello, good evening sa ating mga online viewers. Welcome to Throwback Kasaysayan. Ako nga pala si Jio Guiang, Assistant Professor from the UP Department of History. And this is Throwback Kasaysayan. Like what I always say, every episode, Throwback Kasaysayan is about identifying pressing social issues of today and then tracing the historicity of these social issues, no, yung historic roots ng mga problema ng lipunan natin. So today we are celebrating a very special day because today is International Human Rights Day, no? So ito ang magiging focus ng topic natin for tonight. And bago tayo magtungo diyan, alamin muna natin ang statistics ng COVID-19 sa Pilipinas for today, December 10, 2020, Thursday. Ayan. So dapat gumilid. So, COVID statistics for today, December 10, Thursday. So we have a total number of active cases na umabot na sa 27,781. That brings up the total number of COVID-19 cases sa Pilipinas na 445,540, with the DOH recording 1,383 new cases just for today. The total death toll of COVID-19 in the Philippines is 8,701, with the DOH recording an additional 24 deaths for today. Ang total recoveries naman ng COVID-19 sa Pilipinas ay umabot na sa 409,058, with the DOH recording an additional 133 recoveries just for today. So yan ang statistics ng COVID-19 for today, December 10, 2020, Thursday. At updated lagi ang Quarantalk Media Facebook page. Makikita nyo ang daily statistics ng COVID-19 sa Pilipinas doon sa kanilang FB page. No? So, again, today is December 10, International Human Rights Day, no? So, yan ang ating magiging paksa for tonight. So, alamin natin, to give us a further information about our topic for tonight, alamin natin ang pulso ng bayan. Okay. December 10, Human Rights Day or International Human Rights Day. Dito magre-revolve ang ating topic for today. And we commemorate, for example, in terms of human rights, we commemorate the heroism and the martyrdom of those who suffered under the dictatorship during the Marcos years, no? Paboritong topic na ata ng Throwback Kasaysayan ang Marcos period kasi as evidenced with what is happening in present day society in recent history, marami pang kailangan bunuin para maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan, mas lalo na ng ating mga online viewers na nakikinig for tonight, kung ano ba talaga ang nangyari nung mga panahon ng martial law. So, ito ang ginugunita natin, yung kabayanihan at yung martyrdom ng mga human rights victims during the Marcos period. And meron tayong mga special guests for tonight na nag-aaral ng paksang ito, no? So for tonight, ang isang guest natin ay staple na sa ating show at nabanggit ko na ata before na ito ang kanyang paksa, ito ang kanyang area of interest, particularly sa kanyang thesis. Kasama natin for tonight si Professor Aaron Viernes. Hello, Aaron.
Hello po. Magandang gabi po ulit sa sa ating mga tagapakinig, tagapanood. Nag-aaral po pero hindi pa naman ganoon ka-eksperto. Sana mapalalim.
Live from Bulacan.
Bulacan po.
Oo. So, Aaron, balita ko ikaw ay magti-thesis defense.
Yeah. Ito na ata yun.
Hindi, oo. Tama-tama na review itong review itong episode na ito para kay Aaron Viernes dahil ito yung kanyang sources sa kanyang thesis, inaaral niya.
Public defense pa
na. Public defense ito, naka-live tayo, no? Pero tanungin ko muna si Aaron, bakit nga ba? I mean, lagi pag nag-guest si Aaron sa ating programa, lagi ko kinakamusta along with other colleagues of mine sa show na to. Is kung kamusta yung online teaching. Pero ang anuhin ko ngayon, gusto kong itanong sa'yo is, kamusta ba yung not kamusta, bakit ito yung napili mo para sa iyong topic?
Ako kasi for me it's timely, no, lalo na parang yung several episodes din ng throwback when discuss tayo nung historical distortion, yung mga ganyan. Sakto nung graduate ako nung 2016 nung undergrad. So to say turning point siya kasi kung after 1986 yung mga umabot siguro doon, sino yung mag-expect na yung anak nung pinaalis nila ay muntikang manalo?
And naman, no?
As we hanggang ngayon, no, pinaglalaban niya, no. Hindi natin maintindihan, no. Pero as we can see for the past few years, very strong yung efforts to distort yung history. No? And I think bilang student of history, obligation natin na patibayin palalo yung mga datos, no, information, accessible information para maiwasan yung yung pagkalimot sa nakaraan at pag-ulit dun sa mga pagkakamali ng nakaraan. So isa ito dun sa mga inspiration ko. And I think motivation na rin to successfully finish, hopefully by next year. Sana. At maganda dahil may in-invite tayo dun sa isa sa mga pinagkunan ko talaga ng sources. Very timely din yung pagkakabuo ng office na yan. So, yun.
So, ano ba talaga to office na to? Kasi may mga kasama tayo empleyado ng opisina na to, no? Makakasama natin for tonight, mula sa Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission or HRVVMC, no? Kasama natin si Jem Espina. Hello, Jem. Andito ba si Jem?
Jem, andyan ka ba?
Hi, Sir Gio. Hi, Aaron.
Hello
okay. Hello. Jem, kumusta ka?
Ito, kinakabahan at unang beses ko ata.
Nag-review na sasagot yan.
Siyempre, papatay na ng mga boss ko eh.
Mukhang may pa complete background, nandun yung
libro.
Anda ng webinar. Okay, isa pa nating mga kasama, so si Jem, ikaw ay research assistant, tama? Sa HRVVMC, no? Tama ba?
Po.
Okay. Ang mga kasama natin ay co-worker din, empleyado din of the same organization. History researcher naman siya. Mga kasama natin for tonight, si Lorenzo Martinez. Hello, Kite.
Ayan.
Si Kite. Hello, Kite.
Hi, Kite.
Ayan.
Hi, boss.
Hello.
Para naka-uniform ata yung mga HRVVMC.
HRVVMC.
Si Kyle yung boss ko, so at least siya yung makatulong sa akin mamaya sa mga isasagot.
Boss mo siya? Boss mo?
Oo.
Yeah, actually, just covering for the guests that I think they might have had some difficulties logging in, so I'll be
So siya magiging substitute muna kasi may difficulty si Sam, di ba? Dapat si Sam kasama natin na librarian ng ng HRVVMC. So bago tayo mag-proceed sa ating discussion, kumusta ang work routine natin sa sa Memorial Commission? Do you report I understand ang office ay nasa Kalayaan.
Oo, Kalayaan.
No?
Oo.
Nagre-report kayo doon physically?
Yes. My arrangement kami to report to the office staggered. So some of our employees work from home on certain days, and
okay.
We have a schedule that we coordinate with our different divisions just to be sure that we're complying with some protocols or office bottom.
So ngayon 3 times a week na kami pumapasok. So dati twice, pero ngayon parang mas nagiging lax na rin at marami rin kaming hinahabol na trabaho. 'Di ba, boss?
Yeah, we do funny activities.
Para nasa inuman lang Boss.
Di ba, boss?
Oo nga. Di ba, boss? Sabi niyo informal, di ba? Kwentuhan lang.
Okay, hindi sa amin ang
Sabi
galing
niyo
yan.
informal, di ba?
Hindi sa amin ang galing yan.
Ang maganda
Ay,
dito is
sorry
lahat
ba? Mali pala.
lahat tayo ay history major.
History major.
We were students.
Yeah, actually, I know this.
Oo. History department, UP History Department, no? So magandang iba-iba very diverse na napupuntahan ng field yung mga kasi ang dami ko ng history majors na nagiging guest dito tapos iba-iba talaga yung yung background nila So to get to the topic for tonight. Bigyan muna natin ng background yung ating mga online viewers, no? Ano ba yung Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission? Can any of you, kay Jem or kay Kite, give us a brief background? Paano ito nabuo? Ano yung scope nito? Ano yung aims?
Tama.
Is it connected to the government or what? So, anyone, sino pwedeng mag-introduce sa atin?
Tama, magagamit ko to
Yeah. For context, siguro, it's important to mention, since related naman talaga with our introduction that just came up a while ago. Since we understand that during the martial law period, from 1972 to 1986, there were acknowledged human rights violations and victims of these state-induced human rights violations during that period. These were acknowledged by the state in 2013 through Republic Act number 10368. And the basis of the agency's existence was from a quasi-judicial evaluation process undertaken by the Human Rights Victims Claims Board. The Claims Board essentially read through tens of thousands of different claims from aggrieved parties saying that they were victims or relatives thereto of the state-induced violations during the period. From all of these claims, the Claims Board was able to disaggregate 11,103, which have been recognized by the state thereto and given monetary reparations. So these were reparations in light of the damages. Well, physical damages and whatnot that were induced upon them during the regime. Likewise, with the Claims Board, there was also a second agency, which is our agency, which is mandated to establish a memorial museum, library, and compendium in honor of these victims who were recognized of being victims of this period. It's also in our mandate to ensure that the teaching of the facts of these atrocities and the memorialization of the suffering and the heroism of those who lived through the martial law years can be perpetuated into the primary, secondary, and tertiary education curricula here in the Philippines. So that has been put up by law under the legislature, and that's the reason why we exist.
Oo, tama. At saka para di ba kahit para alam din ng mga viewers natin kung ano yung hahanapin para malaman talaga anong function ng Claims Board pati Memorial Commission. Pwede nilang i-research yung sa official gazette, yung Republic Act 10368. Yan
nandun siya.
Oo. So, batas to na pinirmahan noong 2013. Yes, Jem.
Yes, sige, Jem.
Gusto lang din linawin na yung so nabanggit nga ni Boss Kite na yung RA1, yung isa sa mga mandates namin ay talagang magtayo ng ng museum. So ngayon ongoing na yung bid process and hopefully ma-announce na yung winner soon. Nagkaroon kami ng maraming haters na nagsasabi na yung museum na yan parang because hindi museum, doon dapat i-appropriate yung funds. Pero ang linawin namin na ayon sa RA 10368, meron talagang pondong nakalaan para sa pagpapatayo ng museum na yan, 500 million pesos. So galing yung 500 million pesos sa 10 billion pesos na nabawi natin mula sa Swiss accounts ng mga Marcoses. So ayun lang, para lang matahimik ang mga haters dyan.
Ikaw naman, Jem, wala pa nag-hate eh.
Siguro dahil may Facebook page kayo, dami nyo nakatanggap na mga messages na mga pro-Marcos, mga Marcos loyalists na na parang pinapasawalang bisa yung or binabaliwala yung mandate ng inyong agency, pati ng claims board. I understand yung claim, you work hand in hand with the claims board, hindi ba? Tama ba?
What the HRVCB does is that we keep the files that were from the claims board, but particularly the 11,103 resolutions of those who were approved, and then the documents regarding all the other claims processes. The claims board itself was rendered functus officio, so natapos yung...
okay. Functus officio, hindi ko na-gets.
Yun, just a disclaimer regarding that. So after the claims board ceased to function, nag-operate yung Memorial Commission to carry over with Republic Act 2668's mandate. Like that.
In fact, diba ang History Department laging partner na HRVVNC.
Tama.
May mga ilang events na tayo eh.
Partner natin yan eh.
Yeah, we're very glad. We still have support from the UP Department of History. But actually, like regards to UP, one of the board of trustees for the Memorial Commission is supposed to be the librarian of the library. There's a new librarian right now, and kakapasok na din ata siya with some of the BOT's meetings.
Okay. That's good.
So, kumbaga,
go. Aaron.
Sorry po, kuya. Gagamitin ko eh. Hindi, so, kumbaga, yung claims board, sila yung nag-screen ng mga applications for recognition ng human rights cases ng martial law years. Tapos, kayo yung nagtabi nung kumbaga yung na-compile nila na mga documents.
Yes, tama yan. So may 75,749 na mga nag-file ng claims. Pero sa kasamaang palad, 11,103 lang yung na-approve. So makita naman natin na nagkaroon ng nagkaroon ng problema diyan kasi unang-una sa lahat, kailangan talaga ng documentation sa mga nagaganap. So, it's sad to say, marami sa mga victims na nag-file, kulang yung documentation na naikalap nila. Like, for example, sa far-flung areas, kailangan ng death certificate para mapatunayan na talagang napatay itong biktima na to sa Mindanao. Pero alam naman natin na 1970s, 1980s, wala pa masyadong access sa mga nagaganap noon. Tsaka it's although ito yung official numbers natin, there are still those na hindi rin nakapag-file kasi yung naging filing process para sa claims 2014-2015. Pero hanggang ngayon may mga nakausap kami na biglang hindi pala sila aware na nagkaroon ng application process, and they are hoping sana na makakuha rin sila ng claims kasi nga syempre we will be recognizing them through the role of victims din. Although yung iba documented naman sila by Task TFDP, Amnesty International, ganun, Batayan ng Mabayani. So may files naman sila doon. Di nga lang sila aware ng application process.
Interesting din yung nangyayaring documentation na nare-record ng HRVVMC kasi doon mo makikita yung scope ng human rights violations during the Marcos period. Hindi ba na? Kasi madalas ang mababasa mo sa mga libro, well, at least yung mga common na libro is nasa city center, ganyan, yung kung ano yung mga violations, human rights violations sa mga activists sa syudad o kaya sa Luzon, hindi ba? Pero ang dami pa palang cases, hindi ba umaabot pa beyond that, no?
Yeah,
So,
actually,
sige. Go.
Hindi, may mga survivors discussion groups din kami na kinoconduct. So, we talk with the survivors sa mga different areas, kinakamusta sila. Tsaka talagang when you get to interact with them, iba rin talaga yung yung mararamdaman mo kapag sila na mismo yung nagkukwento ng mga kwento nila. Tsaka mahirap din since nasa amin nga rin yung file, so binabasa namin yung mga resolutions, tsaka yung mga affidavits nila. It really hits differently, lalo na pag very graphic yung mga inilalahad nilang mga nagaganap sa nila.
So, given that background ng HRVVMC, in terms of sources, for example, kasi for example, ito si Aaron.
Tama.
The history of human rights violations during the martial period. What sources of human rights under the Marcos Dictatorship does the HRVVMC have? Anong types ng sources? Are these testimonies, interviews, for example? What can researchers expect when they go to the office of HRVVMC na when they want to know about human rights violations during that period, that dark period? Ano yung tipong sources na pwede nilang makonsult?
Thank you for the question, Kuya Gio.
Tinanong ko for you.
Hindi, nakuha ko na yung Go, Kai.
I think it's very important considering that there is still a need for expanded research on this period because a lot of things happened during that time which have yet to be fully explored. So in terms of what the agency has, of course, as we mentioned, there are the files regarding the 11,103 verified claimants of human rights violations. So we have access to the resolutions there too. Of course, you just have to contact the agency, establish the necessary permissions for that. But you can read the resolutions of the individual cases upon request. That's for one end, which is the raw resolutions. As for other materials, the HRVVMC also conducts original research. So right now, we're working on the Essential Truths series. On what we've been briefed so far are 10 essential truths about the martial law period. So far, we have 2 which have been made available online on our website. One is the essential truths on the declaration of the martial law era. And the second one is on the essential truths of the Philippine economy during martial law. Both of those are available on our website, the freedommemorialmuseum.com.
Papers, research work?
These are original researches. So they're in the form of booklets. I don't exactly have the exact way that our executive director explained it. Essentially, they serve as guides or short guides for, say, teachers or students who'd like to read these and use it for jumping points to reference other materials which we're citing. Since we make sure that we're corroborating the materials inside with different materials, different other sources. We also had a research last 2019 on the Malisbong massacre. So I worked with Sir Viernes, Kuya Aaron, to train the team to
narinig ko yung
Oo.
paper ni Kite about that, no? Last year, I heard about you were writing the paper. Oh. Also, tell us about something no tungkol doon sa na yon, doon sa research niya, for example. Kasi wala masyadong nakakaalam noon. Actually,
Tama.
alam ng mga tao na tinuturo sa school, mga first quarter storm, human rights violation sa mga kampo, for example, sa metro, dito sa Metro Manila, for example. Yan mga alam nila, but those researches, hindi masyado siya familiar for our students and maybe for some of our teachers, for example. So, anong pwede mong ma-share, for example, about the sources na ginamit nyo tungkol doon sa specific research na binabanggit mo that you worked with Aaron, and what did you find out in a nutshell?
Okay. I'll do my best to condense what we.
Sorry.
Mahabang it's more than a year, no? Kahit more than a year na project.
Yeah.
Sultan
Actually,
Kudarat.
we were supposed to fly to Sultan Kudarat on March 22 this year, but then the lockdown happened, so postponed yung activities. We were supposed to do a second set of interviews. But last year, what we did was we released a book, which is essentially a compilation of references, resource materials on what's so-called the Malisbong massacre, also the Palembang massacre, the Kapil Mosque Palembang massacre. So the gist of this incident was that there was a military operation that happened in the southern coastline of Palembang. It's a municipality in Sultan Kudarat. Sultan Kudarat at the time was recently reorganized from the larger province of Cotabato because at the time there was kaka-declare ng martial law 2 years ago, and there was an outbreak of the Moro uprising, so the MNLF rebellion. It depends on what source you read. But that was the context that the military operation took place. So nabalitaan daw sila that there were MNLF units who were present in the area and they were trying to clear them out. And when they went to the area, basically there were a large group of male residents who were rounded up from the general location, from the different barangays. And they confined them all, detained them, within a mosque in Barangay Malisbong. And then slowly and systematically over the course of several days, these men were taken out in small batches and then disposed of. So iba-iba yung sinasabing methods which were used to quote-unquote dispose of the detainees. Most commonly, they were made to dig their own graves and were shot at and then buried in. That's the resources we used to look into the matter. Were first, we had to check all of the resolutions that were citing that this incident happened. We're still looking into additional files from these resolutions because we've only focused on those recognized 10 points for killing whose claimants were from Palembang. So we still have to look at the claimants who submitted their claims from outside of the region, and also for claimants who are survivors mismo of the mosque, but were affirmed for, say, arbitrary detention or torture, whatnot. So we checked those resolutions, and then we also checked the reference files that were used by the claims board in order to verify these claims. So we also evaluated the different news articles and the witness accounts that were brought up. The CHR also did its own documentary. They also had a research project in Palembang. The output was a documentary. mga kwento sa Malisbong, which we've also shared with the Department of History. They shared it with their students. And from all that research, we created an action plan to coordinate with Sultan Kudarat State University, which is based in Palembang. We trained them with the UP Department of History on oral historiography methodology. And then we went to Palembang and coordinated a series of interviews with survivors and relatives of the survivors na na-identify from our field coordinator who herself has had particular contact and experience in this incident. So the output we made, we decided, one, there was a lot of material to work on, and it's important that interest be generated to research on that. And two, we are hoping that releasing that kind of book, which we did, would help encourage people to look into perhaps do similar research projects. And, so what we have is basically a book of resources that were compiled together. So different resources sila. There are including the transcripts of the interviews that we conducted on the field, and then we also included the newspaper articles that were written during the period. So what the news at the time was saying about the alleged incident was still alleged at the time. And then what newspaper article started saying after the Marcos dictatorship was ousted. So umiba din yung narrative. And so we are hoping to expand that actually, like an amended edition this year, although COVID happens. We are hoping to find out a way to continue that.
Go. Sige,
alam ko may ano rin yan di ba? Aside from the Malisbong massacre, yung meron pa tayong ginawa naman on the Las Navas massacre. Sa Samar naman. Yes,
yung
Jem.
Sa Samar
si Jem.
naman.
Si Jem pala.
Yeah.
So yung research
kanina pa naghihintay si Jem magsalita
Hindi ko makahabain.
Yeah.
Siyempre, talaga yan ni boss So, for Samar naman, initially, yung plan dapat doon ay napakarami sana kaming, marami kasing mga massacres na naganap sa Samar. So, there's the Las Navas massacre, and then Samar kasi marami siyang cases of deforestation, NPA encounters, and 85% talagang nabawasan yung forest cover sa Samar from 85% in the 1950s to mga 14% na lang. But yung research project namin ngayon na isa, we're going to be focusing on the abuse of the clergy sa Samar Island. Yung nakatuwa kasi rito sa project na to, the clergy really yung clergy really took a stand and resisted the Marcos dictatorship. May mga kwento katulad ng isang nadakip na pare, when he was, dahil nung nakulong siya, parang lahat ng parishes sa Samar, hindi sila nagmisa kahit Christmas Mass until nakalaya yung particular na pari na iyon. Tapos, of course, nandun din si Father Asisio. So, isa siyang naging controversial yung case niya because dahil sa linked siya sa Social Action Center sa parish, and syempre parang yung sa red, kumbaga, 'di ba may red tagging ngayon. So, natag siya as
yan.
NPA, and eventually he was suddenly found dead. So hopefully patapos na yung manuscript doon, and we are planning to launch naman the narrative on that sometime next year. Meron din kaming ibang projects din, like for example sa mga desaparecidos na yung mga women desaparecidos during the martial law era. So there are 22 women and a baby na na napatay o nawala during this time. Tapos yung mga archives assistants namin and isang consultant, they really went around the country gathering the yung mga testimonials ng mga nung mga naiwan nila and how it affected them. So yun din yung isang nakalaan na i-publish namin. Tsaka sa when it comes to publishing data on our part, as much as possible, gusto namin na mapakita yung mga primary sources mismo. Na ito yung ayaw namin ng parang preconceived may narrative kasi syempre kung ganun baka isipin na ng mga parang nagkakaroon na kami ng bias kumbaga, 'di ba?
Exactly.
Yeah, at least kung naipapakita namin yung mga sources, masasampal namin na ito yung data and ito sinasabi ng executive director na gustong mapakita yung data so that the public can think and decide for themselves kasi kulang pa nga ng awareness sa mga nagaganap and especially with the numbers. Hanggang ngayon, I don't think we could say na merong official na parang hindi pa rin tayo makapag-decide ng official number although we have that claims data from the claims board kasi nga may mga taong hindi pa nakapag-file and may mga hindi rin nakapag alam na sure sigurado naman kaming nangyari yung violation sa kanila pero dahil nga kulang sila ng documentation, the claim board had to deny the case. Had the cases nila.
So parang base sa nakikita na sa sinabi ni Kite at saka ni Jem, there's plenty of work.
Tama.
Ang dami pang kailangan
For researchers.
For researchers, no? Kailangan natin na kasi ito yung sinasabi natin sa history methods na pwede na natin gawin to kasi meron na tayong detachment doon sa event. Ilang decades na siya nangyari and tayo na millennials or ano ba tawag sa atin? Millennials.
Ako, Kuya Gio. Millennials, Kuya Gio.
Millennials, ganyan. We have to take part in this kasi tayo yung tayo yung magpe-present siguro ng data sa mga tao for them. I mean, we have to ang samaman ng nito but una sa lahat, we have to honor the sacrifice of the victims. We have to honor their memory. So one way of honoring their memory is unraveling the truth behind what they di ba? Unraveling the truth.
Unraveling the past.
Unraveling the past. Ganyan. About martial law, unraveling the truth behind what is forcibly hidden by those who are in power and who want to return or who are
still in power. Still
in power. And of course, on the far forward looking, hindi ba? You have to matuto tayo doon sa kasaysayan. Huwag na natin ulitin na magkaroon pa ng susunod na ganyan. Kasi, hindi ba? Kung mag-election na, ganyan, no? Pag nalaman mo itong mga kwento na to, malalaman mo na talagang, ay, naku, may mga ganito talagang mga politiko na ginawa to. Di ba? Itong mga violations na to, napakadami nila. At hindi pa lahat ay na-uncover, no? Napakadami pang kailangan gawin. Tatanungin ko ngayon, based sa nakalap na sources ng HRVVMC and based sa exposure ninyo dun sa sources when you were studying the sources, how different are they from, or are they really different from, let's say, yung mga typically sinasite ng mga historians na tulad ni Alfred McCoy, usually sinasite niya Amnesty International, hindi ba? Amnesty International, yung kanilang missions, 2 missions yun, di ba? 1975 and Tatlo ba? Kaya alam ni Aaron, 1975, 82? 80. And then the last one is
73, 75, tapos 80.
80, yon. How different is this in terms of the scope of the sources that you have in HRVVMC as opposed to what the Amnesty International is available online? The online viewers can download it, hindi ba? So what I'm trying to point out is what is very compelling that we have to look into the archives of HRVVMC in order to find out new perspectives about the human rights violations during the martial law period. So ano yung bago dito na meron na ina-archive ng inyong office, ng inyong agency?
Go,
I
Jen.
I guess sa amin, sige boss, ako muna. Sige, so sa
Galing ka
amin
sa
yung
Ilocay to.
Go. Kahit,
I take the term of endearment. Thank you.
sige. I guess on the part of our agent is sources namin, what really stands out sa aming collection is that these are individual stories of actual human beings, and talagang nayu-humanize sila. So pwede madali yung mga kwento, yung mga reports, 'di ba? Syempre they're there to give the overall picture na ito yung mga nangyayari, tsaka minsan na ano na siya na parang nare-reduce na to statistics to just show the gravity in numbers. But when you read every single account, that's when it strikes differently eh. Na ang dami talagang pwedeng stories that still are unknown. And if you yung sa ngayon, meron kami yung sa memorial division. So yung archivist namin and yung chief archive and yung mga archives assistants, they really sift through these sources, collecting the data so that we could present them hopefully at the soonest possible time. So ang hirap kasi pati ako may time na nagtrabaho before becoming a research assistant, archives assistant muna ako. So pag binabasa mo talaga yung mga kwento, minsan talaga ang bigat ng pakiramdam mo na minsan hindi ka naiisipin mo. So kumbaga na ipapasa na rin yung trauma na nangyari sa kanila sa amin. So there's really we really need care dito, kaya parang last week nagkaroon kami ng ng counseling session to work on dealing with trauma. Kaya I'd like to siguro kukunin ko na rin ang panahon na ito para mapag-shoutout sa aming archivist na si Ma'am Van and sa aming mga archives assistants kasi talagang ang bigat talaga ng trabahong ginagawa nila at napaka-crucial because they're really making sure that these stories get heard. Siguro yung sa akin, yung pinaka nag-strike sa akin na story sa paghahalungkat ng mga files would be this 14-year-old boy from Tagkawayan, Quezon. So in the midst of the 1981 elections, nagkaroon ng gulo sa pinakamalapit na elementary school sa kanila. Tapos umuwi siya kasi siya na yung breadwinner nun sa pamilya niya eh. Tapos nung nakita niya yung isa niyang kapatid na sa labas nagtatali ng na tinatali yung parang baka nila or something or yung kalabaw, pinauwi niya. And nagkataon may hinahabol yung mga militar nung time na yun. Tapos nakatakas yung isang yung person na hinahabol pero yung bata yung nadakip. So siya yung kinuha. And then yung nanay niya kakapanganak lang niya parang 3 weeks before. So nagmamakaawa siya pero tinulak siya ng mga militar na himatay siya. Tapos yung lola niya sinuyod yung buong bayan kung nasaan siya nung nasabi niya na apo niya yun yung nawawala. So parang nanlamig bigla yung mga tao na yung mga nakabantay na pasensya na po lola, tapos pinakita yung yung bata. So patay na siya. So these really are I guess it's easy for those historical revisionists to just deny na kung sino-sino lang yung mga lahat naman ng na naghihirap nung martial law mga alam mo yun, yung mga pasaway lang, mga NPA, mga rebelde. Pero actually, there are so many innocent people whose lives were destroyed because of this massacre. And it's just very insensitive na tinatapak-tapakan lang natin yung mga ala-ala nila sa sa pangbabastos ng mga naganap sa nila. And these are people na hanggang ngayon wala pa silang boses, wala pa silang hanggang ngayon disenfranchised and marginalized pa rin sila sa lahat ng mga nagaganap. Kaya the work really that doon naman siguro kami nagsa-stand out ngayon.
Grabe yung mga kwento. How about si Kite? Based on what I'm sure you've read the studies, existing literature about the human rights violations during martial law. How different and how impactful yung scope of research and documentation na nagawa ng HRVVMC to enrich or not really enrich, but to deepen our understanding of human rights violations during the Marcos period?
So to begin with, of course, the sources that we have referenced before are that have been cited: the Amnesty International, International Commission of Jurists, the different mission reports that have been conducted during the period. What allows our agency to improve on the research there is that we basically exist now. So as has been stated, there's been enough distance from the time where we're able to apply contextual analysis. Hindsight would be 2020 if you'd suppose, but this distance from the time is what allows us to consider the different factors that might have contributed to certain incidents and whatnot. Because what we're trying to do is truth seeking. So to understand the why for the events that have happened and what exactly happened. I'd agree with Jem that it's very important not to lose the humanity in the statistics. So there are 11,103 voices to be heard from all of the different statements and testimonies that were put forward to verify these victims of these atrocities. And it's not good with regards to respecting the memory of these people to simply brush it aside in general assumptions that they simply broke the law. That's why they suffered. And our agency serves that role of truth seeking because in the transitional justice framework, so there are 4 pillars. If for context of transitional justice, which is defined through the United Nations and its prosecution initiatives, truth-seeking processes, reparations programs, and institutional reform. So there has been no prosecution initiative relating to our agency. Our agency's mandate so far appears to be the truth-seeking aspect, where we allow these materials to be published online and accessible to educators, the general public, so that they can learn the lessons from this period. The claims board from the past dealt with the reparations, so monetary reparations for those who suffered. And it's our hope that all of these processes can lead into the institutional reform that's required in transitional justice. This is something that has yet to be reconciled in the Philippines now. A lot of the people who have been both victims and benefactors of what happened in the period are still alive. So it's very important for initiatives like this to exist, and for this kind of work to be done in order to do this sort of national healing that many people would want to receive, at least the acknowledgement from the state that they have been wronged and whatnot. I'd agree with Jem on that point. The humanity of the statistics is important.
So napaka-fresh nung sources in terms of yung stories nga, the unknown stories nung human rights violations. Tatanungin ko si Aaron. Si Aaron naman bilang
Hinihintay ko yung moment
naman.
on the end of a researcher that is an outsider of HRVVMC. Ano yung bagong, for example, ikaw Aaron na yan sa iyong thesis, for example, ano yung bagong perspective na inahahain mo sa existing narratives about the human rights violations during the martial law period? What have you seen through the sources? We've narinig na natin snippets noon through Jem and through Kite, but particularly sa perspective mo, what are you looking at? Anong viewpoint at anong sources mula sa agency yung tinitingnan mo?
Siguro bago ko sagutin ng diretso yung tanong ni Kuya Gio, gusto ko lang din mag-focus dun sa sinabi ni Kite on the concept of transitional justice and national healing. Kasi isa din siya dun sa I think one of the reason why I'm pursuing this research. Nabanggit kanina ni Kite na may 4 pillars, diba? You have yung persecution, truth-telling or truth commissions, reparation, and same time yung systematic change. Pero pag titingnan mo kasi at least in the context of Philippines, 1970s global context, hindi lang naman Pilipinas yung under dictatorship eh. Parang ano nga yan eh. If we would look into the period, it's actually a trend, di ba? In Latin America, in Indonesia, Southeast Asia, halimbawa, even the Philippines, were under dictatorships, or even South Africa, di ba? Pero merong pagkakaiba dun sa paano nila hinarap yung dictatorial, yung past nila with a dictator. In regards to our context, sadly, kahit natutuwa ako sa pagkakabuo ng MEMCOM and Claims Board noong 2013, medyo nakakalungkot din because you have to understand it's somewhat belated, diba? That's 27 years after the toppling of the dictatorship. And isa sa mga mahalaga when we talk about transitional justice is yung konsepto ng what do we remember about the period. And kung yung mga tao bang nag-perpetuate ng abuses were actually persecuted. Not essentially pinatay din or binitay or whatsoever. Siyempre ayaw natin ng ganun. Pero nabigyan ng hustisya yung buhay yung mga taong sinaktan nila or pinatay nila. And sadly, realidad hanggang ngayon, hindi rin siya totoo. Kasi, di ba, for example, in the Senate today, yung nakaupong red tagging, di ba may sila, yung committee ngayon on red tagging.
Sila.
I can fathom the reason why this certain senator, siya yung inupong
sino yan? Senator na yan?
Senator P. Senator PN. Kilala nyo yan, may movie yan eh. Diba, may movie yan. Tapos nagtago dati yan. Hindi, kasi, diba, how can you do that, in that sense, kung ito mismong taong to, if you would actually browse through different materials about martial law and human rights, isa siya dun sa laging nababanggit. So nandun yung sense of impunity eh. So I guess isa yun dun sa gustong i-address ng thesis. Now going to the thesis na pinabala ko, ano yung insight na nakikita ko? Well, una, bakit I have to acknowledge yung Memorial Commission kasi yung bulk of the sources that I would actually use ay galing sa kanila. Okay. Now, ano yung bagong insight na ibibigay niyan? Siguro unang-una yung idea that these human rights cases are actually recognized by the state, recognized by the government. Okay? Na meron silang accountability on these cases. Now hindi yung ideas supremacy ng state, no? But I'm thinking of it in a way na ito yung in-acknowledge na mismo ng Estado. No? But at the same time, syempre, you also have to acknowledge yung other independent reports ng human rights violations. Pero significant yun eh. If you would use something na, ito yung in-acknowledge ng state, ito yung mga bibigyan ng reparations, sila mismo yung na-abuse. I think that's something, especially when we talk about truth-telling. It's a step, no? Definitely hindi yan yung end goal kasi nandun pa rin yung paggamit ng iba pang sources. Now, aside from that, I think yung lawak at laki ng sources na available sa Memcom, ang daming pwedeng i-explore. And yung ma-explore ko lang dun sa binabalak is actually the killings. Okay? Bakit? Well, definitely, may logistical concerns din. Kasi, we have to acknowledge, sabi nga nila, Jem, mahirap i-browse through yung individually yung cases. Okay? And yung cases pala ng killings dun, out of the 11,103 is around 2,000 cases yun.
Dami.
Now, ano yung bala ko with those cases? Beyond statistics, beyond the numbers, no? Ayaw natin masyado na numbers game eh. I think we have to collect yung individual narratives and understand yung pattern of killings. So, bali yung gusto kong i-unpack mismo is yung idea ng mass killings. That there are instances during the martial years that people group together were actually killed together. For example, yung sa Palembang or yung sa Samar. Hindi lang to yung individual cases na yung sinasabi nga ni Jem, hindi lang yung mga pinatay ay yung mga pasaway, hindi lang yung mga NPA or yung kalaban ng gobyerno. And actually, yung sources of Memcom would actually show that even yung resolutions, nandun yung background, what were they doing before the incident, paano sila pinatay at ano yung nangyari pagkatapos silang patayin. And actually, it's very sad. Kahit titingnan, to be honest, mahirap mahirap siyang isulat kasi mahirap basahin yung experiences ng taong pinatay. Pero kung dun pa lang sa statistics makikita mo, it's not just people age 20, yung nasa young adult years, hindi lang sila yun eh. You have teens na makikita mong victims. And it actually says something about what was happening during that period. Na hindi hindi lang localized yung, kasi madami, di ba? Dun sa mga nagpapakalat ng chismis or disinformation. Ang kadalasan argument, ano lang naman yan eh. Ito yung mga isolated cases. Diba? But if you actually read yung statistics and documents na bakit merong kung isolated yan at kung bakit yung mga lumaban dyan or baka kalaban ng gobyerno, bakit may mga pinatay na in the early teens? Bakit across the Philippines, diba, from Ilocos to Mindanao, bakit rampant yung killing? And actually, what is interesting na gusto ko rin i-explore pa, pag tinignan pa lang kasi yung data, sabihin ng karamihan, 1981, nilift yung martial law. But if you would actually look the data, cases of killings, nag-peak siya post-81, post-80. Ano yung reasons behind that? I think yun yung mga kailangan pa nating explore eh. Kasi in fairness to McCoy, to Raisa Robles, they were able to create narratives about the human rights violations in the Philippines. Pero karamihan na nababasa natin kasi narrative are narratives of those who survive. So kadalasan sila yung na-torture. Pero
parang
wala tayong
they live to tell the horrific tale, diba?
Pero wala tayong kadalasan nababasa on people who died. Kasi ito na sila na yung silence. I think kailangan nating explore yung mga ganung parts on martial law. Ma-explore yung mga kasi halimbawa si di ba, si JPE nung tita T sila ni sino yung kasama niya noon? Si Sal Panelo ba? Or si Bongbong? Si Bongbong ata.
Oo.
Tama ba, Jem? Oo, silang dalawa,
tama,
diba?
Tama siya.
Meron siyang part doon na denial of massacres. But if you would actually sources, you would actually see families killed together. Pag sinabi kong family, hindi yan yung yung magkakapatid na age 20 and 30 ganun siguro. No? Pag titingnan mo,
Yun, family
around
talaga.
family, no?
Unit.
Family of 10, tapos hindi lang yung nanay, tatay, no? You have their children na kasamang pinatay. Ano yung reason for that? So, I think yun yung mga maganda pang explore when we talk about these sources. And definitely, dapat corroborated din with with other sources eh. Kasi, di ba, hindi lang naman, I mean, ito yung state recognized. But at the same time, meron ng mga early attempts to archive yung mga cases na to such as TFDP, halimbawa. Maganda rin actually tignan yung and compare ito with the Hawaii class suit. Kasi ano rin yun eh. Well, unfortunately, hindi sa Pilipinas. Yun nga, isa sa mga problema natin eh, di ba? Naakusahan sila na guilty sa iba pang bansa, no? Pero maganda siyang tignan, no? To be corroborated with this information from other sources. So yun. So mass killings, massacres.
Grabe. Napakabigat nung topic.
Oo. Hindi, yun nga eh. Para nung ginagawa ko to, may one time na umiyak ako. Pero syempre, hindi ko kikwento yung di ba? Yung ginawa dun sa Pero the idea is, hindi ko alam kung kaya ba to eh. 2000. Baka screen lang yung ilang cases. So yun.
Grabe. Okay.
I do agree.
Yeah.
Yes, Kai.
There are a lot of different things na pwede ding i-explore with the resources we have. No? Well, we still have to establish the proper systems in order to do so. But like with the data that we have available, you can do all kinds of playing around, if you may. So each of these resolutions, kasi if you read into the documents mismo, na-identify din yung perpetrators. Sometimes even down to the name of the particular unit or the soldier who was assigned to the victim. So the system has to be established. But essentially, that's one thing that's possible in the future. You can identify particular perpetrators, which ones are often cited in documents, which places even you can even determine were the most dense in terms of the number of violations being committed. So we have heard that Samar indeed became a particular hot zone in that regard. Baka din yung Mindanao, although there's a problem with the documentation that took place with that, because Mindanao was basically in a state of war during that time, and very heavy media censorship. You can even determine, for example, why these incidents might have happened. So were they being tagged as NPA or MNLF dissidents, underground members? Was it being conducted by military or paramilitary forces? And you can also determine those different trends, yung nature of killing or torture involved, even if there is a particular discretion between if the victim is male or female, or if like the amount of minors or children, which are also included in this data. There's a lot of things that can be explored. We just need the systems in order to tap into that.
Yung lang siguro. Yeah. Pero syempre, no, I think this topic, no, especially when you're pursuing this topic, syempre kailangang maingat din, especially in our context right now. No, lalo na if I think one of the challenges is magpangalan ng unit ng military involved doon. I mean, while we want to do that, may mga kailangan din tayong i-navigate na because some of the people who are actually named in the documents are actually still at some of them are influential, no? So I think we have to be nakakatakot pala to.
Nakapagsulat ata tayo niyan Aaron di ba?
Oo.
Yung sabi sa akin ni Dr. Viernes na parang teka lang, mukhang kailangan natin i-censor yung ilang mga pangalan ng mga
kasi
dito. Buhay pa sila.
Grabe.
Oo.
So
sige Jem.
Yeah,
We
yun
can
nga isang fear that that yung ibang mga witnesses namin are facing right now. So yun nga sa summer project nga namin. So nag-interview kami ng mga pare na retired o kaya hindi or mga ex-pare. Tapos some of them ayaw talaga nilang sumama kasi hanggang ngayon nasa hit list pa rin sila. Tsaka talagang may nagbabantay pa rin sila. Especially now na yung nauuso na ulit sina red tagging, ganun, na mas kailangan nilang mag-ingat sa mga nangyayari. Kaya malaking panghihinayang din on our part kasi we want to get their stories out while they still can. Pero paano namin yan magagawa yung ibang mangangalap, yung ibang kwento if they're still living in this period of fear? Oo.
Totoo. So, hindi mo naman pwedeng mapilit, hindi ba kasi na psychological din no? Ano namang pilitin mo, no? It will bring back the trauma. Parang kumbaga ganun. Kasi kahit no.
Yeah, regarding that then. So actually medyo timely din yung pagkasabi niya na we have to be careful navigating naming certain people since we already did receive rather like a letter from the Department of National Defense, si Secretary. They
pwede mo bang i-divulge yan dito kahit?
Well,
baka sensitive. Baka sensitive.
Hindi pwedeng i-declassify.
sure.
Bigyan lang natin ng idea, general idea. Ano yung
na ako Akala ko yung ako yung napakalat.
Ano yung general impression ng letter?
I mean, it was just a communication to the office, right? The general idea is that, well, there's still people in the government which are very sensitive to what kind of information, what kind of stance the Freedom Memorial, when the museum is up, what it might portray to these certain people or certain institutions in government. And part din siya ng proseso ng healing. I don't have any other words to describe it because well, it's difficult to reckon in a past where the forces of state security, supposedly to protect the people, were the ones who were kumbaga inflicting these malices and incidences, atrocities, if you may, in some context. And then it's this same institution that also ended up turning against the administration and supporting the EDSA revolution. So, although it wasn't a unanimous sort of choice for all of the parts of the government to do that, right? So until now it's difficult to reconcile with that, and it also makes research more complicated because you have to consider different people and parties of interest on that regard.
Okay. Grabe, dami natin ng pag-usapan tapos na yung 1 oras. Actually, nagpas na.
Time na po.
Time out. Okay, sige. So magbigay lang tayo ng final word para sa ating mga online viewers, and meron akong last question, hindi ba? Na we have to relate with you guys are connected with HRVVMC that collects documents human rights violations during the Marcos period. Si Aaron, inaaral din niya yan. Naaral ko din yan at one point in my research. The important question is connecting it to what is happening today, which we will answer, no? Can we say that the status of human rights in the country has improved under present circumstances? No? Before we answer that, alamin natin kung ano ang ating pagtatasa. Sino mauna? Si Kite siguro. Can we say that the status of human rights has improved in present times? Because it's how many decades since the martial law atrocities, what can we, based on your experience, you've encountered documentations about human rights, so what can we, hindi ba yun naman ang point ng pag-aaral natin din ng kasaysayan eh, so we can have clearer hindsight, hindi ba, kung ano yung, how can we appreciate what we have today. So in your opinion, what can you say about what we are experiencing today?
Well, personally, I would say personally, on a personal level, there hasn't been much of a change, if I can recall, from the general climate of how this topic is treated, at least on the government level. There's there's quite the impunity in how security is handled here against the war on drugs and whatnot. On a personal level, I wouldn't want to say this in the comfort of research. Honestly, I've been in too much of a rabbit hole to look into our topics here on martial law that I haven't been able to familiarize myself with the present day, for better or for worse. But from my impression right now, there still doesn't seem to be a lot of improvement yet. Although I do hope that there would be in the future. Sige, baka pwede mo nang to switch with Jem. He might be more informed than me on this.
Ikaw, Jem.
Jem.
Sige, ikaw, Jem.
Okay. Sige. First of all, gusto ko magbigay ng disclaimer na yung views po namin do not reflect the views of the agency. Oo. So
So, i-clarify lang natin hindi po to views ng HR, VVMC. Itong last question, these are their opinions.
These are our personal opinions. Sige. On my part, I would say that kumbaga, if so yung tanong is if things are much worse than during the martial law period, no? I'd say that sa sitwasyon ng bansa natin ngayon, we had a relapse. Syempre, after the Marcos and after the Marcos years, sumunod si President Aquino, and mataas pa rin yung mga extrajudicial killings nung time na yun. Pero after the Aquino administration, bumaba siya significantly during the Ramos, Estrada, and even during the Arroyo and Aquino administrations. Although, syempre, alam naman natin na may nagkaroon ng mga may mga impunities rin na naganap during that time, like kina Karen and She, ganun. Pero this time, with 2016, ever since 2016, iba talaga yung ihip ng hangin. You could see that there is really something different, especially since with the way that human rights violations are being handled right now. Una, makikita naman natin na this is a trend globally na in trying to censor democracy. And also, we could see it's not a secret na syempre merong relationship si Duterte with the Marcoses. So parang kumbaga nauulit yung patterns ng kasaysayan. But one thing na sinabi ng isa naming speaker nung Essential Truth seminar sa Cebu, sinabi lang niya na parang what's different is that kumbaga during the Marcos period, there was really that effort na to legalize everything, to make sure that yung mga atrocities na nagaganap, meron pa ring legality behind it, na hindi gagalaw si Marcos na hindi nagaganap ang mga na walang dahilan, walang magandang legal na dahilan. Kumbaga, nag-e-effort pa rin siya para lokohin tayo. Sa administrasyong ito, harap-harapan ng patayan, harap-harapan ang nakawan, hindi pa rin tayo nakakuha ng, and it's really interesting how yung bagong factor din na may mga trolls to really silence this dissent. So, but I guess one thing din na na that is sad to note, kahit na bumaba rin yung cases during in between the Marcos and the Duterte period, ever since martial law, talagang nagsimula na rin talaga yung kultura na on a national scale parang nagiging ahensya ang pamahalaan upang patahimikin ng mga tao yung to silence dissent, to silence to really just cause this oppression na nagaganap. Oo.
So, okay. How about Aaron? Si Aaron naman.
Ayan, ako siguro, no, looking back then and now, I wouldn't say improve yung improved yung word na pwede natin gawin. Definitely hindi nag-improve. When we talk about martial law siguro and Marcos, siguro yung tortures and yung killings, no, most especially, it can be understood as something weaponized and to some extent institutionalized siya na bahagi mismo siya ng government instrument. Ganito kami mamamalakad. Na parang maganda yung pinopoint ni McCoy doon, no, especially when we talk about, no, kasi meron siyang thesis but definitely mas torture yung niya, pero yung pinopropose niya is kaya dumadami yung cases of killings, no, post 1980 kasi wala ka na yung legal or na martial law. The idea is to instill discipline and obedience sa people using visual using what people see, no? Yung mga pinatay nga, yung mga salvage victims. Bahagi talaga siya ng instrumento ng pamahalaan. But definitely, post-EDSA siguro, I mean, there are different factors. For one, nagtayo ng CHR, meron kang independent media na at least, no, meron mga cases na na-highlight. But it doesn't mean na natigil yung killings, no. For example, 'di ba, si Leon Alejandro, martial law activist, pero hindi naman siya pinatay during Marcos time. He was actually killed na 87 na ata. And other activists na very active ng martial law were also killed post-EDSA. So madami yan. And maganda yung observation ni Jem na may relapse nga Ang kaibahan lang, wala tayong martial law ngayon. Pero the idea is you have, especially ngayon, time natin ngayon, you have the clear attempt to name people that could endanger yung kanilang well-being. Para ngayon nga lang, di ba? Nakakagulat, we're celebrating the International Human Rights Day. Pero merong,
ilan yung dalawa?
Six. Just for today, di ba? And these are legitimate voices critical of the government. Makikita mo yun And yung nakakatakot di ba? Parang the idea is you start with people who speak out against government. Nangyari yan noon na yung General Order September 22, 1972, lahat ng opposition ikulong mo. Tapos ngayon, I wouldn't say na parehong-pareho, pero you can see the semblance yung mga maiingay na kritiko, either kulong mo o takutin mo, you cow them. So you can see, no, I wouldn't say nag-improve yan. Kung nag-improve man, napakaliit ng in-improve na may mga vocal, pero kung nagpapatuloy pa rin yan. Lalo na kung I think especially in areas far from the metro, I think mas mataas yung chances na nangyayari.
Grabe daw sa Dumaguete. Yung mga nababalita.
Negros, diba? Sa Negros last year. So, I wouldn't say na nag-improve siya.
Sige.
Yun. Ikaw, Kuya Gio, anong pagtatasa ko?
Ito pagtatasa ko dyan, pakitaan natin ng data. Pakitaan natin ng data ating mga online viewers. Nakikita ba ang data? In terms of
Yun.
human rights, ito na, lantaran na, kinumpara na natin, no? According to the Human Rights Watch 2018 report, there were about 12,000 killed because of the drug war. Sususugan ko yung mga sinabi ng tatlong guests ko for tonight, no? Ang ambag ko siguro dito is yung facts, yung data, kasi ito naman ang pinag-uusapan natin. At least 2,555 were by the police. Even the PNP admitted na sa 98,000 operations, more than 4,000 yung napatay na drug personalities. Probably, ito yung narrative na nanlaban, hindi ba? Andito yung statistics na masasabi natin na may in-improve nga ba? Pinaglaban ng mga human rights defenders yung due process because of the drug war, no? And what do they get in exchange? They were charged around 2,370 human rights defenders were charged from 2016 to 2019. And then meron ka ngayong anti-terror law, no? And then rampant ang red tagging. So in essence, wala
talaga.
Nadaigan pa. Hindi ba? Pwede mo i-argue na nadaigan pa.
Oo. Iniiba lang talaga yung nawe-weaponize. Kung nung panahon na yon, ililink ka with either the Moro National Liberation Front, you're in Mindanao, or yung New People's Army or the Communist Party noong time ni Marcos. Ngayon, ang naman, ang
ililink ka sa
weaponize. Nung initially, drugista ka. Ngayon, nire-rentag ka na rin.
Komunista ka, oo. Parang cover-up yan Cover up for the incompetence. Cover up for the incompetence. This is just my opinion, hindi ba? This is just my opinion din naman.
Hindi po ito opinion nila Jem at ni Kite.
Okay.
Pretty sure our commentary on the dolomite of the government is forecast.
So, maraming salamat sa aking mga guests, si Aaron, lagi naman nandito, si Jem at saka si Kite. Si Kite sobrang last minute nitong na-invite si Kite, as in siguro piniem lang siguro siya, uy, wala si Sam. Si Kite biglang pumasok, di ba? Thank you very much. And like every episode, meron akong recommended readings para sa ating mga online viewers, at si Aaron ang nag-suggest nito. So Aaron, paki-discuss. Ayan na. Hindi ko na kailangan ipakita sa PowerPoint. Ayan, sige. Pakita mo, i-flash mo sa
So,
yan. Martial Law, Never Again. Ni Raisa Robles.
So, ito yung student, makikita nyo, no? Merong mga sticky notes sa gilid. Kasi isa to sa mga sources na ginamit ko. And this is actually, I think, one of the best books, no, when we talk about martial law and human rights violations. Kasi aside from statistics, gagamit siya ng statistics dito, it was written in narrative form that you could actually understand yung workings of the mind of Marcos, but at the same time what was happening in the context of human rights violations. And sa mga magsasabing bias yung libro, no, actually si Raisa Robles, very, very well-researched yung produce niya. Even use yung books that were actually so-called written by Marcos himself. Today's Revolution, Democracy.
Marcosian niya na tinatawag.
Marcosian, Revolution from the Center, 5 years into the New Society. Kasi madami, to be fair, pagbabasahin nyo yung mga libro ni Marcos na yun, sasabihin naman niya doon, nagpalaya ako ng mga dinitain ko, 7,000 yan by 1977. I-discuss dito. But at the same time, you also have to understand yung context, bakit ba may mga napalayang political detainee na napakarami at that time na de-discuss ni Raisa. But at the same time, well-researched siya, pero ano pa rin siya pag binasa mo, it hits hard kasi merong mga personal excerpt, halimbawa yung torture kay Boyet Mijares, yung anak ni Primitivo Mijares. Kasi kwento dito So merong ganung parts that na feeling ko mas maiintindihan din ng mga readers natin, especially kung nagsisimula sila to research about martial law, to study about martial. So maganda. Hindi ko alam kung available pa siya sa bookstores. Meron pa ata. Yan. So Marcos Martial Law.
Third World Studies program ng UP, Third World Study Center, ng UP. I think nagbebenta sila ng copies niyan.
Oo. Okay. So maganda.
i-flash ko lang, yung ating mga guest ay galing sa HRVVMC. Hindi ko na i-flash kanina. Ito ang kanilang logo. So pag nakikita nyo ito yung agency na kumakalap ng data and nagdo-document ng human rights violations. At ito ang kanilang Facebook, no? Andun naka-flash yung kanilang Facebook page sa ating screen, no? So you can visit that to be updated about the HRVVMC. So once again, I thank si Jem at saka si Kite na last minute, no? Thank you very much. Napaka-fruitful ng ating discussion. And Aaron, si Aaron lagi naman nandito yan. Thank you, Aaron. Good luck sa iyong defense sa 19?
17 po.
17, December 17. Good luck. And tungkol yan sa topic na ito. Thank you very much. At sa lahat ng online viewers. Sige, go.
Mag-shoutout.
Mga ka-opisina namin na nanonood ngayon and pati sa mga dating ka-opisina. Oo, hi.
Salamat po.
Sa Membi.
Hi, salamat po.
Kay Ara at kay Hazel. Ayun. Yun lang.
May special mention. Ikaw, Kite. Ikaw, Boss Kite.
Okay na daw. Okay. Sige, so thank you very much. Thank you. Sa lahat ng online viewers, thank you. Sana marami kayong natutunan ngayon. Today it's International Human Rights Day, no? We commemorate for this episode those who gave their lives and those who were victims. Their lives, we remember their lives, who were victims of human rights violations during the martial law. And we hope that human rights in the Philippines, the case of human rights in the Philippines, improve in the near future. Diba? We are looking forward to a better future. So thank you very much.
May wish pero hindi ko nasasabihin.
Anong wish mo?
Hindi ko nasasabihin. Baka maano ako eh.
Maano ka na?
Basta huwag na.
Huwag na. Sige.
Baka maano ako eh.
Oo, okay. Sige.
Hindi mo na ako maging guest dito.
Sige, thank you. I will see our online viewers. Hopefully, you tune with Throwback Kasaysayan next Thursday for another episode. Episode 20 na. Malapit na matapos ang second season. Grabe. Thank you very much. Thank you to our guests.
Thank you.
Kite, Aaron, thank you. And thank you to our online viewers. See you next Thursday. Good night. Good night, guys.
Night.